What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 5 of the PJF podcast. Skylar and I had a great conversation today. I think you guys are going to learn a lot. We started off with a pretty heated debate on our top 5 current NBA players. I think you guys know who my number 1 is. He gave a pretty crazy statement. It has to do with Kawhi Leonard and Michael Jordan. Hate on him in the comments if you disagree. From there, we got into how to build a phenom. So we're talking about if you're a parent of a kid or you know a young kid and you want to build them into a phenom, what are the steps? Is it possible? And we go into detail of exactly what we think you need to do. From there, I just responded to some of your YouTube comments. You guys leave some pretty interesting YouTube comments and our Apple Podcast reviews as well. So I just went on and we responded to them. We just had a little conversation. There's actually some gems in there. So it wasn't just fun and entertaining. There's also some gems with us actually responding to what you guys are saying. Let's get it. You're listening to the PJF Podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Favorites, and I'm an NBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it. Skylar has something crazy to say. I already know this because he mentioned this last week. First of all, we're going to talk about our top 5. Who is your number 1? And give me the same crazy statement that you made last week.
Wait. About
the craziest statement that you've ever made. Make that statement right now.
Honestly, Paul, I get flack for a lot of crazy stuff a lot of times. Well, obviously LeBron James is my number 1.
Okay. However,
I think you're referring to my Kawhi statement?
Yes.
Okay.
So Kawhi's your 2?
Kawhi's my 2, yes.
All right, let's hear that crazy statement.
So talk radio is doing me a favor right now, sports talk radio, in terms of the comparison, but I said that Kawhi Leonard is Michael Jordan 1.1. However, if you don't allow me to put context into it, it's definitely going to sound crazy. We got to talk about the evolution of the game. So the game now is better than the game was 10 years ago.
So he's better than Michael Jordan.
You put Kawhi with the Bulls in the 90s, and the results don't change. The results don't change in any capacity in terms of leading scorer, defensive player of the year, best offensive defensive player combo.
The Bulls were really, really good. Exactly. What happened when Michael Jordan went out? They were still like number 2.
Exactly.
Scottie was almost the MVP that year.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. But who's better?
Who's better? I mean, that's what I mean is because basketball is such a complex game. There's played on both ends of the floor. If you're going to ask me straight up, if I'm a GM and I get Michael Jordan, I get Kawhi Leonard, I might take Kawhi Leonard. Now the argument is because you can't do the generational thing, right? Because Jordan separated himself in the 90s because he was the first person to really get in, like own in on taking care of his body and elevating his performance aside from his already crazy genetics. So he maximized his potential in the window that he was given. Yeah. And obviously, if you put Michael Jordan, you know what I mean, in the mid or 2010s and give him that same thing, he's going to be even better than what we saw.
Very different.
Exactly. He's going to be even a better Jordan than what we saw in the 90s. But however, you can't do that. So you just take 90s Michael Jordan and you take 2019 Kawhi Leonard and you ask me who's the better basketball player, I'm going to take Kawhi Leonard.
You have to look at how good are you compared to your peers. Kawhi is not better than his peers at the level that Michael Jordan was better than his peers.
But I think that's, again, it goes back to the evolution, is because everybody now has the same accessibility to everything, where back in Jordan's day, like I said, he was kind of pioneering that concept of taking his genetic makeup and then trying to maximize himself from a performance standpoint and a skill standpoint. So he did everything to elevate himself away from his peers because they weren't doing that kind of stuff. They were out partying. I mean, you hear the stories from the 90s and those guys were
Jordan was out partying too.
Yeah.
But he just took care of his business.
He showed up in the weight room the next day. Yeah. Regardless. So you look at all the players now, I mean, they're all just machines. I mean, freaking LeBron sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber half the year. I mean, it's
we've evolved for sure. If you look back at like the Michael Jordan strength clips, he's doing like behind the neck pull downs, like just weird stuff that probably isn't getting basketball players that much better, which he needed. He just needed some general size and strength to go up against, the Pistons, and they had the Jordan rules where they're knocking him around. Every time he drives, they knock him. But like, I just can't have a today comparison to the 90s because you should be better.
Exactly.
I think you could take the top 7, maybe even the top 10, maybe even the top 15 in the NBA today, put them on that Bulls team, and they win 5, 6 championships.
Easy. I'd go even more than that.
But if you go the other way and you said, well, what if Jordan was here? He would have adapted to the 3 ball. He would shoot the 3 ball at a whole nother level.
Oh, yeah.
He would have modern day training. Like, he would be on a whole nother level.
Yes.
So he has better physical gifts than probably anybody ever.
Yeah. Well, that's what's unique about Kawhi too, is he has physical gifts that are unique to any other player that we've ever seen before too, in terms of
he's nowhere
length,
near as athletic
size.
As Jordan.
Exactly. Though. Yeah. So Jordan had the athleticism advantage.
And I don't know if Kawhi shoots that much better than Jordan from 3.
Oh, he does. That's where they're similar.
Yeah.
Percentage wise, he does. He's efficient.
But the 3 wasn't a great shot then. A mid-range was a better shot, and so that's what Jordan prioritized.
Yeah.
Had he prioritized the 3, he would be an incredible 3-point shooter.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Overall, he's more talented than Kawhi Leonard. He's more talented.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We were talking about better.
Yeah. Better is how much better than your peers. Because if we're talking about how good, then
if that's how you define it.
Then Bob Cousy was a bad basketball player. He was better than his peers, so I still call him great.
Yeah.
But put Bob Cousy in today's game, oh my gosh. Could he even play at G League?
So one thing that I love your argument is defining is that it definitely legitimizes LeBron being the best player of all time.
Why?
Because he's been above and beyond his peers he's almost 2 generations now. He came into the league in 2003. You can make an argument that he was the best player in 2007. And it's 2019. Where do you have LeBron in your top 5?
I have him 2.
Exactly. So we're talking about 10, almost 15 years of being better than his peers. I mean, and then you talk about the evolution of the game. I mean, he was getting hype in.
How many championships does LeBron have?
That's the discrepancy one. So that's where I differentiate greatness and best. So that's why I said LeBron is the best basketball player of all time, and that's why I'll say Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time because of the championship accolades. He's got 3. Yeah, LeBron's got 3.
I could go with that.
Yeah,
and LeBron has to go through the Warriors, and the Warriors are the best team of all time.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt.
Greatest team of all time too.
Best and greatest.
Exactly.
All right, so who's your 3?
Who's my 3? Currently, and we talked about this off the air a minute ago, being a prisoner of the moment. It's so tough not to be a prisoner of the moment in basketball, especially in the playoffs. My third best player right now in the NBA, if I'm going LeBron, then Kawhi, Curry. I go Curry.
Wow.
Yeah, Curry.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, then who's your 4?
That's tough. I'd have to go Giannis.
Okay. Who's 5?
Who am I?
The problem is
exactly being a prisoner of the moment is the problem right there, because I have KD.
You're about to leave one of the top 3 out of your top 5.
Well, see, exactly. That's what makes it so. That's what makes it tough. But we talked. You know what I mean? Like, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, my top 5 was different. So you know what I mean? I'm sitting there and I just named 4, and I'm leaving out KD and James, who, in my opinion, should be the back-to-back MVP over Giannis. Despite, you know what I mean, what Giannis accomplished this year. So if you would,
okay, so you're gonna say KD.
I'm picking James over KD strictly because the Warriors move, and I think KD's probably a great human being, but as a competitor, that's where I'll draw the line there and say James.
Okay, fair. So your 5 is my 1. I don't see how you can get probably MVP 2 years in a row. And of the last 5 years, he's been top 2 every year. So if you're top 2 in MVP voting every year, how are you out of the top 5?
Yeah, so I snuck him in at 5th. That's the defensive side of the ball, which I value tremendously.
How are you out of the top 3 if you're in the top 2 for MVP voting every year?
That's a good question.
That's my question.
Yeah.
How?
The eye test. I think analytically, James Harden's arguably the greatest statistical player, that we've ever seen. Look at some of the numbers that he put up this year, 60, 10, and 10. The first player to ever do that. So when you're looking at it strictly from an analytical or statistical standpoint, like, James Harden's off the charts unreal. Yeah. And he really is an unreal player. But when you're considering both sides of the ball and everything that goes into making a great basketball player, I play the role as general manager. I'm like, if I'm a general manager, who am I going to pick for my team first?
But he plays really good defense. Like, this year, he was a good defender. He's one of the best post defenders in the league.
Yeah.
Led the league
Top
in
5
steals.
Yeah.
Deflections.
Yeah.
Like, he's playing D.
Yeah. He stepped up defensively huge this year.
And his offense outweighs everybody else in the top 5 by so much that you don't necessarily have to be a top 5 defender. When you're that good at offense and then you're a solid defender,
yeah,
I think that's enough.
D'Antoni frustrates me. I'm a Mike D'Antoni fan, but I think James would almost benefit from being in a little more structured system. And I just wasn't you know what I mean? ISO ball dominates the NBA, but I think, you know what I mean? Considering James came from a strong 2-guard position where he was facilitated as a role player within an offense and knew how to play in that structure, there could have been way more balance. You know what I mean? Those 1 for 17 3-point games, you know what I mean? There was that huge disparity where in terms of averages, his numbers balanced out like most basketball players, all basketball players will. But I feel like there was actually stuff left on the table for James in terms of efficient production because of the system.
There is. Also, it's kind of their makeup. Like, you got to understand who they were running with this year. They're literally picking guys up off the G League. 2 guys they were starting off waivers.
Yeah.
Chris Paul's out most of the season. Clint Capella's out a lot of the season. They were starting PJ Tucker at the 5. PJ Tucker's like 6'4".
Yeah.
And he's starting at the 5. And they're winning games in the West. They could have been the 2 seed.
Yeah.
So when you look at like one-man wrecking crew, I don't know if there's anybody better than James. Like, what? Because that's what I value is like you throw this player on any team and they still make you competitive in the West.
Yeah.
You could throw him anywhere and he would make the playoffs. And in fact, he's never missed the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about guys like KD and Steph, though. Like, you put KD and Steph in James' kind of free reign position in terms of just ISO ball and creating your own shot. You know what I mean? Getting looks off, and I think those guys are going to put up comparable numbers.
No, they could put up a similar amount of points. They do not see the floor.
No.
Nobody sees the floor and makes the right pass other than LeBron.
Exactly.
Him and LeBron are in a league of their own as far as being able to just take over, see the floor. And like James, so what people don't understand is a lot of times the Rockets do play as a team. It's just not initiated off some sort of set like the Warriors would do. It starts with ISO and then help side comes. He makes a correct pass and then it triggers dominoes.
Yeah.
And then it's swing, swing, swing. Now, that is, you could call that team ball in a way. Now, do they need to switch it up and have sets and have James playing off the ball, a little more ball movement? Yeah, I think so. I think that's how they get over the hump, is figuring that out. But as far as one-man wrecking crew, nobody can do it like James. Nobody. You're looking at, like, he's been to multiple Western Conference finals. Back when Dwight Howard was just a shell of Dwight Howard, they made it to the Western Conference finals.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of James.
And so the argument, I know if you're sitting here listening, you're like, yeah, but what about, finals? You got to get to the finals. You got to win. I disagree, because in today's league, it's very, very different. In Jordan's league, you can have one superstar player, a side piece, a Scottie Pippen, and then role players.
Yeah.
You cannot do that anymore. We now have super teams. So you literally have to have 2 or 3 superstars if you want to win.
Yeah.
And he has Chris Paul running by the side, but Chris Paul is a superstar who plays like he's coming back from an injury, because he always is coming back from an injury. He's just kind of a little more passive. He's not as aggressive.
He's a little older as well, too.
He's a little older. Yeah. And so I still think Chris Paul is very good, but
he can play.
This year they didn't have any other all-stars. So how do you expect him to go through the Warriors?
No, yeah, exactly. It's tough. I think,
and so when you're looking at player, you can't hold that against somebody. All you can hold them to is, can you get to the playoffs? Can you be competitive? From there, it comes down to the GM of, like, how can we get you your other 2 superstars? Like, this is not the Detroit Pistons of, what was that, year 2? That, I argue that was probably the last team that won without multiple superstars.
2005,
Detroit, 2005, 2004?
They beat the Lakers in 2004.
2004.
No.
I think it was 2004.
No, the Heat won in 04.
No, 06 the Heat won.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
04, like, they didn't have multiple superstars.
They beat.
It's just a solid team.
Yeah. That's the evolution of the league as well. These super teams is because everybody's gotten so good in their own rights as basketball players. You know what I mean? You look at all these different players, and they're all different. You know what I mean? What makes Kyrie Irving great is different than what makes Steph Curry great. It's different what makes KD great, different than what makes James great. And then when a few of them get together, it's over.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I'm looking. Is there anybody who's a better one-man wrecking crew? Like, if you had to put all your money on one guy going to, like, who's
LeBron.
like the Suns.
So this is exactly my perfect example. Is what when the Cavs beat the Warriors in the finals, what play won that game? Game 7. What play won?
When the Cavs beat the Warriors, Kyrie.
Okay. But what other play comes to your head?
I don't know.
See, for me, it's the block, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's because if Iggy converts that's a wrap. And that shot, Kyrie's shot, doesn't matter because Kyrie's shot's cutting a deficit.
Yeah, but
so you got
they still don't win without Kyrie.
One man wrecking crew.
No, that was not a one man.
Both ends.
James,
no.
James has never played with like another like top. Like Kyrie that year is probably number 2 point guard in all of the NBA.
James played with KD and Russell Westbrook, and they made it to the finals.
Exactly.
So
he was very, very young.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was the sixth man of the year. Yeah. I mean, he was a beginning of what we see James as.
But
now.
I'm saying like James as a superstar has never played with somebody at the level of Kyrie Irving.
Chris LeBron has not before he got hurt.
He was hurt.
Exactly,
they probably were going to beat the Warriors.
Well, that's what's interesting about this year is you talked about they almost were a 2 seed, right? It was the very last game of the year where they went from potentially 2, 3, or 4 and ended up at the 4, and so they had to play the Warriors in the second round.
Yeah.
Right? What would have happened had they been able to get that 2 spot and not had to see the Warriors until the last round, and then KD gets hurt in the middle of that series?
It could have been different.
That's what makes that's what basketball is interesting, and again, what makes the Warriors unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I respect the one man wrecking crew. I mean, it's hard to argue. I'm not necessarily arguing with you.
I'm saying like that's all we have because you cannot just look at wins in today's league. It's very, very different.
No,
that's more of a wins are more of a reflection of a GM than it is a player.
So let me ask you this: if you're a GM, who are you taking, Anthony Davis or James Harden?
Oh, James Harden. Ooh. Anthony Davis has had some decent teams that have not made the playoffs.
They've
had
sneak
some
in.
decent teams.
They just lose in the first round. Like they lose.
Yeah, but he's also been out of the playoffs.
Yeah, he's super injury prone.
Drew Holiday, solid point guard. They had Eric Gordon. Mm-hmm. They had Ryan Anderson.
Well, he was really young when they had Eric Gordon.
But they've had some good teams, and they haven't won.
Yeah.
He is not a one-man wrecking crew.
Well, he is when he's healthy, but he only played maybe 60 games this year. But that's what I mean is like there's guys.
But even then, like bigs can't really take over games as much as guards. They just don't have the ball in their hand at all times.
Well, and that's again kind of the evolution of the game because you see, Giannis. I mean, his usage rate. Nobody's even close to as high as the usage rating as James. But you see guys like Giannis, and it's like, and that's why I give a nod to Giannis too, just because when you talk about like. Again, when you talk about one-man wrecking crew, and I'm thinking about the entire both ends of the floor, like Giannis is a disruptor. I mean, so that's tough. I mean,
but he can't shoot well enough.
Not yet. Yeah. So that's
if he gets that, sure.
That's the biggest separator from James. I mean, even you look at LeBron. I mean, if LeBron could shoot at the same efficiency as James, I mean. He probably still wouldn't have jacked 17.
Let's say this: if you put Giannis in James' situation this year, where they're just pulling up random dudes off the G League, and you're getting random, like they are not a 3 seed or 4 seed, whatever they were. There's no chance.
No, not in the West.
They would barely be scraping in, maybe an 8 seed. Like people forget the Bucks are solid all around. They're a solid team.
Bucks are good. Yeah.
So anyways,
who's your 2?
I'm going James 1. I'm going LeBron 2.
Yes.
And keep in mind, this is the first year that I've ever had LeBron out of top 1.
Yeah. I remember you were, and nods you on that. I remember even in the middle of this year, you're sitting there like, okay, this is the time. This is when I move the chip.
This is the year because I've always had a hard time. I always wanted to say like, okay, James 1, but like LeBron was convincingly number 1. He's running through these.
Yeah.
This year, what I found out is he can't quite do that in the West. No.
Well, he got hurt. He played 56 games this year.
He got hurt. But even when he was playing and when he came back, we can see that he can't just run through by himself. I think he's going to need superstars by his side.
I think he got caught thinking he could manipulate the West scenario the same way he was able to manipulate the East scenario when he got back from the All-Star break. And then he realized like, not going to be able to have it with this Lakers squad. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, no, I mean, this is the first year that I could say like Harden had a way better year than LeBron. Overall. So LeBron is still my 2. Kawhi is my 3. And I could move Kawhi up to that 2, but he's my 3. If he wins the finals, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with him at that point.
That's fair.
Number 4 would be
super complicated.
KD.
Okay.
And number 5 would be Giannis.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Steph?
No,
unanimous MVP. That's what's so tough.
I can't. Well, you can't judge it because he's with the Warriors. Like
that's why I bumped KD out and put Steph back in because they're still. I mean, KD got hurt in the.
But like, look, you're that
conference
good.
finals.
You're that good, and you're on a team that's that good. So I can't double you.
But
James literally goes against double and triple teams every night. He's getting full court denials. You cannot play Steph like that.
well, that's what the Raptors are actually doing right now. The Raptors are, and that it
Well,
worked
because
game one, and it
KD's gone.
exactly.
But like
they're-
with Clay and KD on the floor, you cannot double Steph like
yeah.
that.
Well, that's why I bumped him to 3 because they won in the Western Conference Finals, and then they won again last night.
Yeah, but that's
without those
living.
guys.
That's prisoner of the moment.
But I mean, if I'm being a prisoner of the moment, and I'm looking in the history, then I'm like, okay, unanimous MVP. The only thing he doesn't have is a Finals MVP, and again, it's probably because he's too humble of a superstar.
And also, of the top 5, he's by far the worst defender.
Oh yeah, but that's, you know what I mean.
Like if
Yeah.
I'm picking somebody, if I'm at the park and I'm like, who can I score on? Steph.
Yeah, easy.
Not saying he's like bad, and I would still have a hard time. It would be a tough one-on-one matchup. But I'm going to get some buckets on
Yeah,
Steph.
yeah.
James is really, really,
That's the
really
mercy
tough
of
to
his
score
size.
on. When you
Oh,
actually
yeah.
watch him play one-on-one with other NBA players, like people don't understand how long his arms are.
Or how big he is. I mean,
He's
if you haven't seen
huge.
James in
He's
person, yeah,
strong.
his frame is wide.
He
He's
can
big.
move. He's got long arms. And the thing is, he sees things at a whole
Yes,
different pace.
yes.
So he knows what move you're doing before you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think people just don't understand because his offensive usage rate is so high.
Yeah.
If he wanted to be a top 5, top 10 defender in the league, he absolutely could.
I believe that. I believe
But
that.
that's not the best choice for their team because he would have to significantly decrease
Yeah.
what he does on offense. Like you can't go down and ISO like that and play the game that he plays and go that hard on defense.
No.
It's incredible that he was so good on defense this year while still having that
And
usage
he
rate.
played it mental. I mean, you watch James play, and he's always playing with his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when people are trying to sit there and they're trying to understand what separates those cream of the top players. I mean, it's IQ.
Yeah.
It's IQ and how fast you think.
Yep.
And James
Yep.
is
He's at the very, very top.
yes.
Yep.
Like you said, yeah, it's hard. Naming a top 5 is literally almost impossible.
Yeah.
There's
You could go so many different ways with it
yeah.
right now.
That's the beauty of basketball too. is
Yeah.
because there's so many
Well,
different
you
ways.
could also make not just the top 5, you could make the argument that like 4 of those guys are number 1.
Oh yeah, easy.
Like if you made the argument that Kawhi's number 1, I wouldn't be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
If you made the argument that KD's number 1, I wouldn't be surprised. James, like I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah.
So
There's
that's how-
guys we didn't
that's
even
how-
mention that could
Yeah.
argue.
That's how good. You could make the argument that Dame is in the top 5.
Yeah. Anthony Davis again. You know what I mean? Like there's tons of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough league.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So let's say you're a kid, you want to get there, right? You want to rise up. You know what I mean? So you're sitting there, you got your prototype, you love the game. How do you become a phenom hooper? How do you get there?
Phenom hooper. So if we're looking at like early on, like if you're sitting there like a parent listening to this and you got this kid and you're like, I'm going to make him a phenom.
Yeah, those don't exist.
Yeah. So, okay. First of all, like your kid has to develop a love for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think step 1, because we deal with so many parents, obviously, with our business. Step 1 is they're like, okay, well, what's the secret drill? No,
Yeah.
no. First, just like let them fall in love with the game on their terms.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And there's healthy ways you can go about.
there's healthy
you know what I
ways.
mean?
Like
Kinda,
you don't aggressively push them in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice soft nudge in that direction.
Yeah.
If you do it the right way, they're gonna fall in love with the game, I think.
Yeah.
Like my dad, I was telling you,
Yeah,
he
love
had,
this story. Love this
he
story.
had some really unique ways of getting me to fall in love with the game. So basically, he would have me watching like old highlights, like Magic Johnson, like before my time, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas. He would have me watching these, and then during the commercials, he would come up with this game where basically, if I shoot behind the carpet, it's on like this little Tykes hoop. If I shoot beyond the carpet, it's worth 2 points. I got to pass back to him, and then I go for a lob. I catch in the air, I dunk, I pass it back to him. That's worth 1 point. I got to beat my score before the game comes back on.
With the commercial break?
With a commercial break.
Manipulation genius.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting there trying to rack up my score, and then I got to intensely watch the game waiting for that next commercial break.
Yeah.
Because this is a game for me. I'm trying to beat that every time. And so it's not the reps that I was getting on the little tyke, like that's good, but it's the fact that I was sitting there watching the game.
Exactly.
And at that young age, it really sticks in your brain.
Oh, yeah.
Like you watch that good high level basketball, and not the kids these days are just watching ESPN, they're just watching the highlights.
Yeah.
But you really watch that high level basketball and fall in love with the game at that level, it's gonna stick.
Yeah, the
And
intensity,
that's
the
how
moment.
you get good.
Yeah. I remember I got confused. I didn't even realize it. I was watching like Sports Illustrated used to have the year in review of the VHS tapes,
Yep.
and I threw in like 1997, and it was the year U of A won the national championship, and I had no idea. I was watching some archive footage, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm sitting there, a little kid falling in love with the game then too.
Right.
But the fact that your dad had you sitting there consciously or subconsciously rather actually sitting there from a performance standpoint, like, okay, how can I get better than I just was, and getting you to make that your goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just, I mean, that's manipulation 101. And then he made everything fun. Like he would be like, hey, he bought me my first real size basketball. I remember him being like, hey, I wonder if you could go in between the legs 3 times in a row. So I'm just sitting there day and night, like boom, boom, boom. And, eventually I got it. And then he's like, I wonder if you could do that 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
And he just always upped it. And it was always a game. It was never, ever, hey, do this drill. Mm-hmm. It was just a game. And then he'd just be like, hey, look, that doorway is pretty high. I wonder if you could touch it. And
exactly.
Okay, that's my new thing. I'm just going to run and touch this doorway.
Yeah.
And so you build the 2 things that matter the most: love for the game and competitiveness.
Exactly.
Those are the 2 things that you have to develop.
Intangibles. It has to come young.
You can't develop that later.
No.
You could develop all the little skills and do all these drills later. But at that age, you gotta really develop those 2 things.
Yeah, and from an innate standpoint with children, I mean, I got a 15-month-old, and literally I can see it. All he wants to do is make me and his mom happy.
Yep.
But just like what you're saying, if we tell him to do something, then he's just like, nah, let me test you guys. You said don't open this drawer.
Yeah,
I'm gonna open this drawer.
Yeah,
right. But you're keeping it fun from a manipulation standpoint, just impressing you.
Yep.
That's how you start.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Parents, please start with the love.
Yeah. And then so he got into some more aggressive tactics.
Well, you got to continue to engineer that competitiveness.
Yeah. So he always one-upped his little manipulation tactics. So this one I don't necessarily recommend, but keep it in the back pocket.
Yeah.
So I'm like maybe 10 or 11, and I get this letter in the mail
yeah, you told me about it.
From the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
Signed off. It's got the logo. It's signed off by the GM and everything. So this is legit. This is from the Suns. And it goes, hey, PJ, we've been watching you. If you're willing to develop your floater to the point where you just can't even miss anymore, we're going to take you as soon as you graduate high school. And this is a legit letter. So I'm like, well, I'm going to develop my floater.
Yeah.
Like every day I was out there for hours just working on my floater. And I developed a very, very good floater.
You know what's ironic about that I just thought about hearing that story again, is that your dad probably ran out, you know what I mean? Because the kids reach a certain age where that, you know what I mean? How many times can you go behind your back?
Yeah.
Isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Or he's just like, oh, he doesn't want to listen to me anymore. Whose opinion is he going to value?
Yeah.
I got it.
Exactly. I was a huge Suns fan, and that's all I wanted was just to make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was pretty interesting. I mean it worked. I still have a very good floater that will never go away. I always have that touch. And then I found out later, I got a little smarter probably when I was like 16, and I was like, oh, that was my dad.
Yeah, he outsourced the coaching voice.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't use that just yet, but keep it in the back pocket if you need it. Yes, I mean, first of all, just develop that love for the game. Figure out how they can fall in love with the game on their terms, but also don't restrict them just to basketball. Like let them play multiple sports.
Yeah,
like you're going to develop a lot of different things from different sports that you can't develop just in basketball. So like I played soccer, I played hockey, I did a lot of different things. I played baseball.
I think soccer is probably one of the best sports you can do for early development in terms of just the coordination of it, and then get in that competitive mold, but you're not sitting there separated by skill drastically or noticeably. And
I think you got to start that super early because today it's a little bit different where you got your club team, so basketball becomes year round. And it's tough because we sit here as performance coaches, we say don't play basketball year round, do other stuff. And then you're like, oh, these other kids are playing year round and I'm getting left behind. So like early on, I think you just be a kid and you play and you go play soccer, whatever they want to do.
Love to be a competitor.
Yeah. But at a certain point, maybe it's 7th, maybe it's 8th grade. Yeah, you're probably going to end up specializing. And kids are specializing earlier and earlier. But like when you do specialize, remember that we got to make up for those movements that you're not getting through basketball, which is where a good performance training program comes in. So that's part of our goal is like, we're not just giving you basketball specific movements. we're getting you movements that just make you a better overall human.
Yes.
Right. So we're doing multi-directional agility drills. So you're building all of this different coordination that you're missing out on from not playing soccer, but we can still make up for that in the weight room.
Exactly.
So, you don't want to specialize too early and then only play basketball and only do like sport specific stuff in the weight room.
Yeah, I grew up playing soccer. I stopped playing soccer at 16, and as an on-ball defender, I was known as a quality on-ball defender, like all the way early. And then all of a sudden, it was kind of late in high school. It was like, Skylar's lateral quickness dropped off, and it wasn't until later on I'm like, I was so much more of an efficient on-ball defender because of the movements required in soccer that just translated to staying in front of somebody in basketball.
Right.
So just what you're saying, if if you go to that specialization, you have to make up for that, and the weight room exactly is the perfect place.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, let them be a kid, let them have fun. And then when we're looking at developing certain qualities, develop the qualities young that we can't develop later. So peer quickness, peer reaction. Yes, we make improvements even at the NBA level, but it's very, very small. I remember I was reading a book from Verko Shansky. I don't know if it was in Super Training or one of his other books, but he was estimating that you're only going to improve your raw quickness by 10% over your entire career. So that's a window that's pretty small.
Yeah.
10% over your entire career. And we're not talking about like explosiveness, like go somewhere. That has to do more with force in the ground. We get stronger, improve rate of force development. That's easy. But that peer quickness, that initial reaction, that some people just have innately.
Yeah.
And it just like, they just have it or they don't.
Yeah.
And that's one of the traits that really limits people. Like most point guards are going to be told they can no longer play, and it's because of that. It's not because you're too small.
Yeah.
Because we've seen over and over again, you can be small if you have that pure raw quickness. But you cannot be small and slow. And 99% of the world is going to be under 6 foot. So if you're sitting there telling me you want to go far in basketball, your number one priority should be quickness.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how good your handles are. It doesn't matter how good you can shoot. Because like we talked about before, is there such thing as a 6 foot 3-and-D guy? No.
Never will be.
No.
Never
not
will
in
be.
today's
Yeah, never will be.
Not in today's game. So that is
That's
something.
why you picked Steph.
What's that?
That's why you picked Steph to go get a bucket on out of all the other guys.
Exactly. And look, Steph is quick. Steph is quick. And he's 6'2", and he actually has long arms, and we consider him slow by NBA standards,
exactly,
right? By point guard standards. So I don't think people quite understand how quick they are. And when we get parents that come in for the first time, I try to describe this to them, and they go, "Yeah, my son's a point guard, whatever." I go, "Quickness." Like I try to stress it so much, and they go, "He's pretty quick," and I'm like, "No, he's not."
Yeah, pretty quick's not.
No, he's not. He's quick relative to his team.
Exactly.
Because he might be small and like he's the point guard. So yeah, you should be quicker than your teammates, but like you don't understand that there's somebody else in the city quicker, somebody else in the state, in the nation, like.
And that's a difficult, like those are difficult waters for parents sometimes too. Is sometimes you get caught in that nurture where you want your kid to be successful and to be happy being successful at everything, and they don't allow them to face the necessary challenges or the requisite challenges where that next level's at.
Yep.
So the entire time they're perceiving this dream of being a high-level basketball player while never actually exposing themselves to the high-level basketball for their age at that time to see where they're actually really at.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you just said, they're the fastest guy on their team, but they're playing in, bronze division.
Right. Right. So, these things are things we got to develop early because, just keep in mind, like earlier on, these traits are going to stick. If we work on it, we're going to build it. Right. Later on, we can build, but that window of opportunity gets very, very small. Law of diminishing returns. But like early on, go play tag. Like go do things that
be a kid.
Be a kid. Like if you play a lot of tag and you're improving your raw quickness, your spatial awareness, you're improving your reaction ability, all of these different things, that's what is going to make you a better basketball player. Like doing 1 million ball handling drills, that's not it.
Yeah.
Because we can do that later. Now, I'm not saying like I would love for you to keep a ball in your hand at all times and develop that young. But if you gave me a kid who's, 2 kids who are 10 years old, one is the best ball handler in the world and one is the best at playing tag, I'm taking the one that's the best at playing tag. Because I know we got some raw traits that we can work with when we give them the skills.
Exactly.
It's just like when scouts even take like, we go to these AU tournaments and kids are all dunking in warm-ups and the scouts just go to that court.
Exactly.
And it's not because they're saying that kid's going to get me a lot of dunks at the next level. They're going, that kid has the raw athleticism that I can work with.
Yes.
Because every basketball coach thinks like, oh, well, we can improve your shot, we can improve your handles, whatever.
Yes.
But
I think you and I both have probably similar stories when we were coming out of high school, where in terms of the recruiting pool, where we knew definitively we were better at basketball than so many kids. But in terms of exactly what you're talking about, the scouts, you know what I mean? You unfortunately with the 6 foot, lacking the requisite athleticism. I was, had a little bit on the height, but was still drastically lacking the requisite athleticism. And so just like you're saying, scouts are like, can you dunk?
Yeah.
Or where are you at on this court?
Right.
Like,
and they won't admit this.
No.
This is not because they want to be a pure basketball mind, but this is all deeply entrenched in all of these scouts, all of these coaches.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. When they see somebody like me, they're like, I don't know if he has the athleticism to hang. And they would say that we're capped, right? You're capped. Like, well, he's not going to get any better. Mm-hmm. He's already got his handles and his shot. But where they could see somebody with no skill and just throwing down between the leg dunks, and like,
and that's the ego of the coach as well, where they're like, they know nothing about how to make somebody more athletic, but they know how to give somebody some handles. They know how to improve a jump shot. So for them, that's the easier project to work with.
Yeah. Well, and it is the easier project. Improving athleticism is hard. It does take time, but it is possible, right? Develop these traits early on. Like, go play tag. Like, have your kid chase your dog. Like, I was out in this field the other night, and I was just chasing my dog for like an hour. And I thought about it, and I was like, that was probably the best agility workout I've had in several years. Yeah. Better than these like staged agility drills and ladder drills. Like, I was chasing my dog, and my dog is faster than me, and I had it to react to something. And so, go chase your dog.
Next phase of the program.
Yeah. That's going to be phase 12 of the vert code, is just go chase a dog. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, live your life with a ball in your hand. Like, when we talk about improving ball handling, it's not going to come from drills. Drills are great.
Yes.
Trust me, drills are great. There's a lot of drills that got me to where I'm at with my handles, but the number one thing is I just live my life with the ball in the hand. So if I'm going to go to the store, I'm literally dribbling between my legs to the store. I would listen to music and I would dribble to the beat. If I'm watching a game, I would dribble while I watch that game. And you can never amount to that much reps. Exactly. And so forever, the ball will be a part of my hand.
Mm-hmm. And it's a rep game. It's always a rep game. In terms of skill development, it's a game of reps. Yeah. So
you could never catch up to me in any amount of ball handling drills, because I literally lived my entire life with a ball in my hand. And now it sticks there because I don't need to go out and do drills. Like, I'm really too busy now to do a lot of ball handling drills, but I could still pop out on the court and be the best on the court at dribbling.
Exactly. It's riding a bike.
Yeah.
That's knock the rust off for a few, and then you're right back to it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what it is. And then the other piece of advice for these young kids, and this is the piece that is very, very overlooked, is start them strength training. They don't have to hit weights hard, and you don't even have to have them on a structured program. I think they could if they have the mental capacity and they want to, and they're inquiring about it. They're saying, Dad, I want to improve my athleticism. Then cool, let's put you on this structured program, but let's have fun with it, right? Like, we got...
It's not the 90s anymore. The jump shoes are gone.
Right. we got 8-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids on the vert code who are getting good results. I mean, the vert code body weight. Mm-hmm. But there's a video in the videos tab that I mentioned, like, hey, parents, like, do this program, but let your kids have fun with it. It's okay to superset like a glute bridge with tag. Yeah. Like, instead of just going through the program and doing this structured program, let them have fun with it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, they can absolutely go play games for 5 minutes and then do a glute bridge to get that glute activation and set the base, and then go have more fun, and then come back and do a body weight squat, and then go have more fun, and then come back and do a plank, right? Let them have fun with it. And if it gets to the point where you're dragging your kid in to do it, it's too late. You lost. So if they're asking you, hey, Dad, I'm ready to go to the gym to do our vert code body weight, boom, we're winning. And if that ever changes, then phase them off.
Yeah, and that's definitely complicated in terms of just the generational gap from where we grew up to what's relevant now. Games now aren't like going outside and playing with your friends.
Yeah.
Games now are hopping on and
Right.
playing a video game.
No.
So it's arguably more important to have, you know what I mean, exposure to something like a program
Yeah.
where at least it's, you know what I mean, you're getting all of the things that you would normally be getting a generation prior.
True. Yeah.
So it's important. But like you're saying, you know what I mean, if that's got to be the superset where you're doing, you know what I mean, a bridge and then you're going and you're doing a round of you know what I mean, Mortal Kombat or whatever's getting played anymore, I don't know. then that works as well.
Right.
Find that balance.
Do what you got to do, but like start them on some bodyweight stuff. I mean, obviously I've talked about this so much, we don't really have to bring it up, but like the old studies, the one study from the 1950s that strength training stunts your growth, we found out that is a terribly designed study, and there's been hundreds since that show, no, it's actually very beneficial for young kids, for the development of their muscles and their bones, to do strength training at any age.
Yes.
If you're mentally in a place where you can pay attention and you can follow directions and you can pay attention for a full 30 to 45 minutes to
conscious
get your
oversight, coach with you, parent with you,
then it's going to be very, very good for you. Definitely. And it doesn't have to be every day. It could be 2 to 3 days a week. But the reason I say it's so important is because, you know, our development system is backwards, where you go out and you start by playing basketball. And, you know, I've put up on my Instagram a lot of times how much force you're taking on landing from a jump. And so these kids are taking maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 times their body weight. So if you got a 100-pound kid, every time they land, that could be 700 pounds of force going through their body.
Yes.
Like, look at your kid right now. Do you think he's ready to take 700 pounds of force? No. With bad mechanics and no muscle to take some of that force. So if we don't have the muscle absorbing any of that energy from the floor, it's going straight to their joints.
Yeah.
And so you might not see an immediate injury, and that's the issue, is they don't see the injury, so they're like, well, they're good to go. But you're breaking down your kid over and over and over again, year after year.
Yes.
And that's why we got so many injuries at an early age now. Like, we get a lot of people hitting us up, hey, I'm 19 years old and I have to retire because like my cartilage is worn down, or like I had this career-ending injury or whatever.
I was
like a lot of
that.
these. A lot of these could have been prevented had we just started with strength training and teaching proper mechanics. So then every time you go out and you're taking all of these forces in basketball, we're actually prepared.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't send somebody into battle without armor. You're going to send a basketball career is going into battle. Like, get them some armor.
Yeah, I'm a cautionary tale of that. I tore my meniscus at 14 years old in the 8th grade, and I wasn't introduced to strength training until 16. And I was going to 10-hour basketball camps where and I was at University of Arizona basketball camp in the summer, and I tore my meniscus like day 2 of the camp and went 13 more days of just pounding, completely unaware of what I was doing to my body, and nobody around me. So I mean that's
Yeah. So, I mean, we do it backwards. We say, go play, and then you get to high school, and you're like, yeah, now we're going to get strong. No.
Yeah, and
start that early. And if you want to start lifting in high school, okay. But remember, just to lift, like, we have advanced athletes that can't touch a weight. We don't let them touch a weight until they pass certain body weight stages. And so start them on those body weight stages young, and then maybe they're going to get to 8th grade, and then they can progress into weights.
Yeah. And know if that's your goal to be a competitive athlete, that's got to be your requisite. You got to be under, you know what I mean? You got to be, put aside the pride, put aside the ego, and master that body weight and progress gradually.
Right.
Because again, you know what I mean? You think competitive athlete, and then that ego jumps in, and you're like, I'm on phase 3. And you're like, wow, you don't understand what phase 1 is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
So.
Yep, for sure. And then, I mean, you can start to see pretty early 7th, 8th grade kind of where you're going as a player, and coaches can start to kind of tell like who you're going to be. Now, never, put yourself in a certain hole where it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to be a shooter. I'm just going to work on that and not develop anything else. You want to still develop your overall game, but you do want to start figuring out what your superpowers are so that you can go all in on that and then become, somewhat of a specialist. You want to be able to hang your hat on skills.
Yes.
So like for me, it was like ball handling, like I can get past anybody and get in the lane. So then I got to develop my game around that. You know what I mean? So now it's like, well, what complements that? Well, floaters, extension layups, figuring out how to see the floor so that every time I get in the lane, I can make the right pass. So, I like what Dr. Galpin said about like, you have 10 points to spend. And so I think what kids think is like, I want to get better at all these things. And they go like, oh, that drill's good, I'm going to add it. This program's good, I'm going to add it. I see this move from this trainer, I'm going to add it. No.
Mastery.
Yes, master something. And look at your work day as a student athlete. You got to look at your work day as a bookshelf that's already full with books. And so if you want to add something in, you got to take another book off. You can't just keep jamming it full of books, right? And so you got to be very strategic in what books you place on that shelf. You cannot fit everything that's good into your training.
Player awareness, self-awareness. And that's one thing too where, you know what I mean, at about the age you're talking about now, junior high, approaching high school, is you're going to start to receive that criticism, but take it constructively. You know what I mean? Understand who you are, be self-aware as a player. Like you say, know what your superpowers are going to be, start to work on developing those. And then don't take that criticism, take it as constructive criticism, and then work on those things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I see a lot of kids having just 2 years coaching high school basketball. Nowadays, kids will get some of that constructive criticism. Their parents won't necessarily want to agree with it, or they'll want to go into that nurture mode, and they'll just flip to a different program. They'll go to that coach that wants to tell them what they want to hear, rather than go to that coach that's going to expose those deficiencies and challenge you to improve upon them.
Right.
Which why competitiveness has to be an innate trait at a young age. So because the competitors hear that and they're like, oh, bet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And if you don't have that competitiveness and you've just been going all in on skill development at a young age, and then you get told that you lack an aspect of the game, and you're like, I've been working my whole life, you don't know anything.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to be patient, because like I think the kids at that age don't quite understand how hard it is to actually get better at stuff. Mm-hmm. Like when we talk about improving your athleticism, I get messages all the time of people on the Vertco like, yo, man, I've been on this program for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks.
Your human body is not going to adapt as quick as your game character.
Yeah, and then the thing, it builds program hoppers. The last thing you want to be is a program hopper. Exactly. And you can look at that as like, vertical jump athleticism program, like, oh, I did this for 3 weeks. I didn't really get I didn't put 12 inches on my vertical, so I'm going to try this out. No, you got to stick with it for the long term. Club, like you just bounce from club to club until you find where you fit in the best. Skills training, you just go to the skills trainer who makes you feel the best, and then as soon as somebody exposes your weakness, you're out. So you got to be patient. You got to understand that this stuff takes time. Yes. If it didn't take time, everybody would be incredible.
Yes.
We would all be walking around 99 across the board.
Yeah, I like the term program hopper and how it applies to genuinely every aspect.
Kid these days.
Be a competitor, not a program hopper.
Yes.
That's a good tagline.
Yes, for sure.
And that's not to say to not understand your surroundings and know what's best for you and do an overall evaluation. But in terms of programs, like you're saying, give it a fair chance. Adaptability, Dr. Galpin talked about it. You got to be looking at at least a 4 to 8 week window when you're looking for any kind of change. And if you see a change and it's positive, then you're on the right track. Yep. And then just be patient for the long haul.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and then I'm saying you got your 10 points, you got to spend it wisely. I say spend on your superpowers, really develop a skill or two skills that you're really going to be known for. I like what Drew Hanlon says. He's also a huge believer in superpowers. And he was talking to kids, and he was like, if I ask you basically what this guy is known for, you're all going to answer the same thing. So he goes, Kyle Korver.
Shoot.
Yeah. Gerald Green.
Bounce.
Yeah. You should be able to answer in one word. And so then he asked one of the kids, he goes, what's that kid known for? And there's like 14 different answers. And he's like, that's not good. It should all be unanimous. You're known for this one thing. And then based on that, it's like, oh, but he also passes well, and he also moves without the ball, right? But you got to be known for something. If you're not, then I would say, what are you the best at? And is that a very valuable trait, right? Is that trait needed, right? If you're the best at giving high fives, that's great.
Yeah, but you'll find a 12th man spot.
Yeah. But you're going to want to find a trait that really improves directly.
Impacts the game.
Impacts the game directly.
Impact the game. One thing my college coach always used to say, and he'd say he'd get frustrated sometimes in the season, is he'd talk about the off season, and in chance, just what you're talking about from a point system is kind of a bubble. You as a player are a bubble. Use the off season to expand your bubble, and know that when the season approaches, as a coach, they're going to put you in their own bubble based on what they think you're good at. Yep. So if you don't develop your own superpower, eventually a coach is going to find and tell you what they think your power should or should not be, and then you may be at the mercy of that.
Right.
So the sooner you can figure it out for yourself, the happier you'll be as a player, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then, we do want to work on our weaknesses, but like what we've been talking about every week, like what are your debilitating weaknesses, not just your weaknesses, because there's some weaknesses where we could kind of, you know, out of your 10 points, maybe you spend 1 point there. Like we can kind of push it to the side a little bit because it's not hurting our game. But then you got debilitating weaknesses, right? If you can't shoot a basketball, that's debilitating.
Yeah, if you can't stay in front of somebody on
5,
defense.
6, 7 of our points on shooting, because that's a debilitating weakness.
Yeah.
As we're getting into that sort of age, like we won't get into high school because things kind of change at that age, but like 7th, 8th grade, you got to figure out how to balance your skills training with your playing. And that's one thing that we see a lot is like some parents are like, well, he's just going to play. Just play club. That's not enough. You have to be training. You got to be doing strength and conditioning. You got to be doing skills training. But then on the other end, there's an overreaction where some parents are like, actually, what we're going to do is we're not going to play at all. And we're just going to train.
Yeah.
Worst idea. Like you have to be playing, and not just playing organized basketball. You got to go out. You got to play 1-on-1, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. You can't be the best player in that court. If you are, find a new court. Go play people who can expose your weaknesses. Like if your lateral speed is not great, then you need to go find a point guard who is extremely shifty and go guard him.
Yeah.
So like, you know, go be an artist in how you set up your pickup games. Don't just walk into pickup games. Just be like, hey, I know this guy plays pickup here. I'm going to go there so that I can guard him.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, nurturing yourself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like trying to say, you know what I mean? Making yourself feel good based on where you're at. Exactly what you're saying. Challenge yourself, be a competitor, go to the court where you may not get the dub.
Yeah.
And then go back to that court until you do get the dub, and understand at the same time, be self-aware of why you are not producing the way that you expect yourself to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just so many ways to get better playing in pickup. Like you can't, like Harden will play in almost any pickup game. Even if there's no pros, like he'll go to LA Fitness and he'll play. And that's pretty crazy. And the thing is, he challenges himself in different ways. So he's like, look, I got these 4 scrubs who don't know basketball at all. How do I win? And it's not just like ISO. It's like, how do I put them in the correct position? It challenges him as a leader, as a communicator, puts him in different situations. And so you can learn something from any pickup game. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, I'm from a small town, like my situation. From a small town, I'm the best player. I can't go get beat every day. Well, can we expose your weaknesses and make that pickup game hard anyways? Like, if you're not great at passing, then instead of trying to drive every time, say, look, I need to win without scoring.
Yeah.
And now I got to put myself in that situation where I got to step my game up as a passer. So there's a lot of different
I love
ways
that because
to do
there's so many, exactly. There's so many things that go into that too, because from that side, now you're trying to manipulate the game to give your teammates the best possible advantage that they have, knowing that they have debilitating weaknesses.
Yeah.
So that's only going to grow your overall basketball IQ. I mean, working on things that, you know what I mean, you don't see that on a skill set chart. You know what I mean? Like ball handling, shooting. It's like, where's your basketball IQ and how do you adapt that? So it's just like that. Even if you find yourself in an environment where you are unequivocally the best player, how can you find the worst players possible and win with those guys?
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, challenge yourself in different ways, especially if you're in that situation. Like James is always going to be the best. If he's top 5 in the NBA, we know every pickup game he goes to, he's going to be the best. And so he just figures out like other ways to challenge himself. And then that's also your time where you try new moves. You try different stuff. You don't get to your kill moves in these pickup games. So like if you're Ben Simmons and you're struggling walking into a 3, walk into a 3 every single time. Even though you're going to lose because you're probably not going to make any of those. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, put yourself in tough situations and figure out how to get out of that situation.
Yeah. Set a goal and then understand, attack it intelligently. Understand what you're going for in terms of how to just get better for the bigger picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. And then going back to like we talk about the competitiveness, I always ask all these top players, like, how did you develop it? And what did you do at a young age? It's different. I always like to tell the story about OJ Mayo. OJ Mayo, do you remember where he was like at 17 years old?
Cover of Slam magazine in all white tux, leaned against a Bentley.
Bro, one of the best high school basketball players I've ever seen. He was so good. We were in Vegas for a tournament. I think he was a class ahead of me. And I remember we went to watch him play at one of these tournaments, and he was banking threes just to flex. Just for fun, he was banking threes. That's how good he was. And after he got banned from the NBA or whatever happened, he came to train with me. And so he trained for like a month or 2. And one day I just asked him, I'm like, yo, how did you get so good at such a young age? And he's like, well, I'm from a small town. and we only had really one court, and so all the old heads are on the court. You got your college players, you got your old heads who know how to play the game, and he's like 12 years old, and he's got to go play against these kids.
Yeah.
He didn't have his own age group. He didn't have like a young AU team, whatever. He just went and played at this court, and you got to develop that competitiveness because you have to win, because if you lose, you're not getting back on that court because the line is that long. And so that's how he developed his competitiveness. That's how he developed his game.
Yeah, and that's why love of the game, again, is so important early on, because if you don't have the love of the game, you're going to lose that first game on that court where that's the only court to get on. And then, you're just
go
like,
play Fortnite.
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
Path of least resistance.
Yeah.
That's what we're all looking for.
Yeah.
Path of least resistance.
Homeostasis.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it is interesting to ask these guys, like, what did you do? What did you do different? And the overarching theme is not, oh, I did this drill. It's like, oh, I just went to this court. I played against these guys, or I played against older players. I had an older brother who I played one-on-one with, and he always beat me, right? Like Michael Jordan was always beat by his older brother.
Yeah.
Or like I have my dad is super into basketball, and he got me into it, and I was always around it, right? These are the stories that you hear from these top superstars over and over again.
Yeah, the common denominator.
That's the code.
Yep.
These things are the code, right? It's not the secret drills.
Yeah, go find a court that you're not going to get wins on and stay there until you get wins, and then go find the other court that you're going to get beat on and keep going until you get there.
And then you balance, you mix in your skills training, and you do your strength and conditioning, and you focus on your nutrition, and you take advantage of modern day technology, because you want to bring in that old school stuff that you're going out and playing the stuff that we did, but you also want to take advantage of where we're at on social media. You scroll through and you see 1,000 trainers teaching a move. We can pause, we can look back, we can master that move, we can go out and practice it. We have NBA level strength and conditioning programs for $1 a day. Oh my gosh, man! Like I remember when I was in
you try not to get frustrated as you're sitting here at 27 when your whole career's already been washed for 10 years, and you're just like, man,
like we had no resource like that. We were looking early days on the internet. For me, I was just like looking at videos, and you see an NBA player training, and you're just like, I'm going to do that. Yeah. Probably the worst thing that you could be doing at that age.
There was, I remember I had the, you know what I mean? Or you had your VHS tapes where you're sitting there and you're trying to you're watching it in the house and you're like, okay, now okay, we're doing 2-ball dribble combo. And then you go out in your garage and you're like, I forgot the rhythm.
I forgot, yeah.
Now you can prop your phone up and you can sit there and, you know what I mean, and get real time.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like we had no idea how. We were just buying the programs out of the back of Slam magazine. And like now you really, you can get on our program for $1 a day. That is insane to really think about, how if you're willing to take advantage, it's there. Yeah. It's there for you. But then on the other side, don't become reliant on that. Exactly. Don't start saying don't look at our program as like this magic pill that's like, oh, I bought it, now I'm good. You got to put in the work, and you got to do the old school gritty stuff of still going out and playing.
Exactly.
You got to go lose. You got to go get beat up.
Yeah, be a competitor.
Yes. Be a competitor. Look at it as you got to have a well-rounded grind. Mm-hmm. It is not just drills, and it is not just playing. It is both. All right, so I want to answer some. I want to look at some YouTube comments, because I've been looking through the YouTube comments the past couple of days, and there's actually been some really interesting stuff in there.
Questions,
comments, just I mean, I figured why not. The funny thing is, there's always a question that's or sometimes there's a comment that I'm like, why would you say that? And then one of our followers goes on and answers it just how I would answer it. I'm like, yes, we are teaching people.
The day oneers.
Yeah, the day oneers. We got a lot of...
Let me take you back to the archives real quick.
Man, we got a lot of smart people out there
that are listening to us. And
it's funny, a lot of these kids have started following us when they're still just really, really young kids, and they've learned from us for so long, from social media and stuff, that they're almost experts at this point.
That's why the context of the Kawhi being better than Jordan's statement is important, because, again, this is the evolution of the overall game here. I mean, you got 16-year-old kids being like, well, wait a minute, how do I produce more force?
Yeah. Bro, we weren't asking those questions at 16.
There's no way I knew what that meant.
Yeah. All right, so first let's look at some comments from the Galpin episode. So this one, I like this one. So he said, why can I sprint fast but not jump high? Now, in the response, My man Seth Dossett says, throw a rock with your offhand. Can't throw it far, even if you can bicep curl the same weight. You've got to build neuromuscular coordination. Love that.
That's a high level response.
That's a high level response. That's probably exactly how I would have responded.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That's probably better than I would have produced.
That's probably that's genius.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Like people forget that jumping is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, oh, it's just strength. Just get stronger. No, it is a skill. It's like if strength were everything, you would jump off your strong leg. The funny thing is, most people jump off their weaker leg.
Yeah, because it's
right. Like
coordination.
I'm right-handed. I jump better off my left leg. That's pretty standard. I'd say 85-90% of us are the same way. But our right legs are actually a little bit stronger weight room wise. So like if you asked me to hit a rear foot elevated, I could hit more with my right foot. Pistol squat, I could hit more with my right foot. My balance and stability better with my right leg. Still jump higher with the left. And it's because I've built that skill over and over and over again. So like timing matters, rhythm matters. All of these things are even more important than strength. Now, we want to maximize our strength, obviously, but never forget that it is all a skill. Mm-hmm. And even from a standing position, I think I would still jump higher off my right leg than I would off my left. But when you get that approach, now I'm going to go better off my left because I've developed that skill over the years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean.
Easy. But yeah, that response is money.
Yeah, that's a good response. This guy says, I don't really get fast twitch muscle. What does it do? So we're always going to get that. Like we went in detail in this entire episode. So like I can't answer a question like that when we just did a whole episode on that. But you know, that's part of the thing with our IG, with our podcast, is we're trying to teach the high-level scientist and the high-level strength coach something, but in that same episode, we want to teach the kid who doesn't understand anything, which is very hard to do. I don't think people understand how hard that is.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be some stuff where it's just over your head. But, like, stick in there. It goes back to patience.
Yes,
it goes back to, like, you want the information? Well, be able to pay attention for longer than 10 minutes.
Digest.
Listen, because we always go deep in the science, which is necessary. We don't dumb stuff down, but we always get back to like, by the way, this is how this affects your weekend.
Exactly.
So like, pay attention.
This is how it correlates to your current understanding.
Yeah. What was another good one? Why all caps? Why isn't this channel more popular?
Make it more popular.
Yeah, help us.
Thank you. Share.
Help us. Well, we're putting in the work.
That's a good question.
Yeah, share it with your friends. Mm-hmm. You know, if you think we should be more popular, if you like the information that we're putting on, go send your favorite episode to a friend or to a family member, or just walk up to a random dude on the street and be like, "Yo, you don't listen to PJF yet?"
Yeah, same level of exclamation too.
Yeah, all caps.
Yes,
all caps. Let's see what else. What other good one? This channel and information given are underrated. Facts.
That's fair.
Oh, this guy says we need 2 of these a week.
That's
it may be doable in the future. If we get enough listeners, it may be doable.
Yeah,
I'm not
share.
Share it. I'm not going to guarantee anything. All right, let's go to this other video. What else did I post last week? I saw one comment on here that got me going. So this is on my mastering the floater. Did you watch that video?
Yeah. I
I
was also behind the scenes while you were filming it.
Okay, yeah, you were there. So basically on this post, I was talking about if you only have 20 minutes to work on your floater, which you probably do because we have other important things, right? We can't just spend hours and hours a day strictly on our floater, right? Unless you get a letter from the Phoenix Suns like I did. No, like now looking back, it's like, well, the extension layup is just as important as the floater. So if I spend 20 minutes on the floater, I got to spend 20 minutes on my extendos. And shooting is just as important, if not more important.
You're not going to be
I should probably spend an hour on that.
They're sagging off. You're
ball
not
handling,
anyway.
Ball handling matters. Defense matters. Yeah. Playing live matters. Strength and conditioning for an hour a day. So you can see how this adds up to like, oh, I'm in the gym for 3 hours already.
Yeah.
And I do that day in and day out, and my hormones and my nervous system might be a mess.
Exactly.
Not everybody can push through and stay intact and not get injured doing that day after day. And so, again, it goes back to prioritizing. And so in this video, I was talking about the floater should be mastered with your right hand.
Strong
and
hand.
then
Dominant hand.
Yeah, dominant hand, dominant hand. If you're right-handed, it should be with your right hand before we start balancing it. And so I say if you have 20 minutes, you go 15 minutes with your right and 5 minutes with your left. And that's just looking at the stats and seeing that even the best point guards in the NBA are shooting over 95% of their floaters with their right hand.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're shooting 95% of the time with your right hand, why would we split our reps 50-50? Because now I'm just becoming average with my left and average with my right.
Yeah, it's the nature of the floater shot. I mean, most of the time when you're using your floater, you're going to your floater, you have that extra space.
That's the thing. It's an open space shot. It's more so like you get your blow by or you're coming downhill off a pick and roll, and so you get it up with your right hand. You're not shooting the floater if you have somebody directly in your face, unless it's a big coming up.
Yeah.
Right? So like if I get the separation, even if I'm going left, I can get back to my right hand. In fact, that's easier because my shoulder's already aligned. I don't have to turn in the air. So like if you really break down, Calvin and I broke down hours of film on this before I made that statement. And like CJ McCollum, Steph, like all of them, even when they're going right, or left, they're still getting back to the right. So this guy goes on, he says, I completely disagree. He doesn't just disagree.
Yeah.
He completely disagrees.
It's fair.
Okay.
He's confident.
All right. Imagine if somebody said only train ball handling with your right hand. Make it a superpower first. Or only make layups with your primary hand. Make it a superpower first. That would be ridiculous. All you're doing by practicing with your primary hand is limiting your options and stunting your development. What do you say to that?
Context. I mean, clearly, yeah, if what he said is exactly true. If you just worked on your strong hand with ball handling, or you just worked on your, you know what I mean? Ironically, that's what happens as a early childhood development anyways. You're going to be naturally only going to your strong hand. But exactly what you referenced, the floater is a different skill.
What it comes down to, for me, debilitating weakness
That's fair.
versus weakness. Okay? If you can't, he's talking about, you got to be able to do everything with both hands. Well, if you can't dribble with your left hand, debilitating.
Yeah.
Push him left. If you can't finish with your left hand layups, debilitating. Push him left. Have you ever heard anybody, any coach, anybody in the crowd say, push him left, he doesn't have a left-hand floater?
Yeah.
Never. This has never happened. Because again, it's more of an open space shot. You can always get back to the right. And so that statement is crazy.
Yeah, that's a very devil's advocate statement.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So I mean, and I'm not saying that it's bad to have a left-hand floater.
No.
I have a left-hand floater. Steph has a left-hand. But like when you look at how often we actually use it, why would we practice it equally? So I'm saying 15 minutes to 5 minutes. And then once that right hand's master, now we can start bringing it in a little bit more. But like I've ran a lot of skill workouts with NBA point guards, and I'm trying, this is like 2 years ago when I didn't even think about the analytics. It's just like I'm preaching this narrative that like we got to be able to do everything with our left that we do with our right, just because this is what coaches say.
Yeah.
And I wasn't critically
it sounds
thinking.
nice.
It sounds nice.
If it was feasible.
Right. If that was feasible, then we should also be working on our 15-foot pull-ups with our left.
Exactly.
But that would be a terrible investment of time.
Yeah.
It's the same concept, but I was running workouts with these NBA point guards, and I would go to the left-hand floaters, and they could not make them. These are NBA point guards. They could not make left-hand floaters, and I'm like, man, how could they be this bad? And so finally I was like, okay, what would you do in this situation? You obviously don't have this left hand. If you were in this situation, and I'm giving them a situation where I think the left hand would be nice, they all have a different compensation for that. And they're like, oh, well, if I'm here, I would just bump and fade off one. Or like, oh, I love sidestepping to the left. So if I'm in this position, I'm just going to bump and sidestep and fade and hit with my right. So like any situation where you feel like you need that left-hand floater, there's actually probably other options.
Better
and
efficient
sometimes,
options.
Sometimes it's an actual better option.
The floater is a tough shot.
Yeah.
It's a tough shot to master. So yeah, I mean, even going to that with your offhand is, I mean, that's part of why it's just a bad use of time.
Right.
When you look at that big equation.
Right. And so then when I ran it by you, I was like, well, is there any way that we should be doing 50-50? And you were like, the only way is just because you're building up general neuromuscular coordination.
Exactly.
And I agree to a certain extent, but like there's other ways to challenge that neuromuscular coordination that are also highly specific.
Exactly. So while acquiring a skill.
Well,
So
yes,
yeah, that was the only argument I could come up with.
Yeah. And so if I'm practicing my extendos, hitting at tough angles, working on different heights off the glass, like I'm doing regular layups and I'm trying to touch the top of the glass. I'm spinning at certain angles. I'm doing reverse layups, like all things that you are actually going to do in a game. you're building up that neuromuscular coordination really well. Yeah. And so we get that general neuromuscular coordination, but you're also practicing something specific at the same time.
Where it's going to be used.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and then this guy responded to that guy's comment. He said, no, I actually agree with him. He said, imagine if someone said, only shoot threes with your right hand. Oh, he's being sarcastic. Make it a superpower first. Or only make free throws with your primary hand. Yeah. Make it a superpower first. That would be ridiculous, still being sarcastic. All you are doing by practicing with your primary hand is limiting your options and stunning your development. That's exactly the point. He's saying, like, yeah, I mean, we're not, even if you were ambidextrous, I wouldn't want you to shoot with your left hand ever. Mm-hmm. Because could it be nice every now and then somebody's playing on your right to pull up with your left? Sure, but the amount of reps that would go into that would be a very poor investment of time. When I could go 100% on my right hand and make it a superpower, right? So, yeah, I understand. The problem is people really push back when it goes against the traditional narratives and the stuff that they've always been taught.
Yeah, what they've been taught.
His sixth grade coach, like this guy who made this comment, his sixth grade coach told him, look, you got to do everything with both hands.
And that could be his dad.
It could be his dad. And so it's just so deep with him. So he saw that and he's like, no way. But you got to critically think about the game.
That's a good little hack right there too, in terms of just allowing new information to replace old information. If you notice you have an emotional attachment to the source of your prior existing information, maybe that's the limiting factor in your growth.
Right.
Don't have an emotional attachment to unbiased information.
For sure. My man Kevin said, once again, PJF coming in clutch. Learn as much here as I do in my college kinesiology course. Those I always get those. I see like one of those a week, and that's huge when you think about you're paying what, $60,000 for that degree.
The ROI is definitely not.
Yeah, and this is free.
Yeah.
And you're getting more practical information. The funny thing is, like, people think, and I know a lot of our listeners are trying to get into kinesiology, exercise science. A lot of them think that that's where we learn this. Mm-hmm. Like the good trainers, you don't learn in college. That's a nice little foundation.
Exactly.
But it's what happens outside of that. Yeah. Like I remember, like I've always had this thirst for knowledge. I remember walking up to one of my professors and I told him, I was like, I'm going to read 10 books this semester. And I was like, give me your recommendations. And he laughed at me. He goes, try reading one throughout the whole semester. And he's like, just focus on the schoolwork. And I'm like, that's easy. Like I already read the whole book. Now I want to read 10. Give me your recommendations. He wouldn't do it. Yeah. He's like, you need to focus on one.
He probably didn't have any.
Yeah. And I went out and I read 10 books that semester. So like, it's not,
school will teach you how to be resourceful with your time and organization. But in terms of raw information, we live in the open information era. I mean, information, especially in this field, changes weekly almost.
Yep.
So
I value a degree. If you can get it, do it. But like this guy's saying, like I learn more here from this free information than and like I've trained plenty of people with kinesiology degrees, and this is before I really started doing like pros and stuff. This is back when I was doing general fitness. I had some people come to me with a kinesiology degree and they're like, yeah, I did this 4-year degree. I don't actually know how to train. They're like, I know a lot about the body. I have no idea how to actually train myself or train other people. I mean, it's a good compliment. Always appreciate that.
Anatomy, but not functional anatomy.
Yeah. This guy says, don't give up the vegan diet, Skylar.
Love.
You got a few guys on your side out there.
Growing.
So a lot of the comments say, what are the top 3 plyometric exercises? What are the exercises over and over again? Exercises.
The irony.
Exercises.
The irony.
The issue is, what's the irony?
Check the link in the page. Check the link in the bio. Yeah. If it takes you to the YouTube, good. If it doesn't, it's going to take you to the program with the exercises.
Right.
Programmed.
Right.
Specifically.
Exactly. But even outside of that, when we do these, like, if I wanted more views, I would say, like, I would call everything like the top vertical jump exercise. People love exercises, but what you got to understand is it's not exercises. It's how you program the exercises.
Exactly.
No exercise gets you better. That's the secret. Nothing works. Nothing. It's how you program it.
Exactly.
It's like, I always think about, I like this example. If somebody's building a house and dude is good at building houses, and I go up to him, I go, hey man, what do you use? What tools do you use? And he's like, oh, I use this, I use that, and I use this. And then I walk away with this weird like sense of confidence that I know how to build a house. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's what you use? Okay, cool. I'm going to go try to build a house. I'm going to massively fail. And that's because I didn't ask the right questions. I should have asked him, where do you nail the nails? It's not like, what do you use to nail in the nails? It's where do you nail the nails? It's what's the process?
It's like how do you make the base to where when you get to the second story, it doesn't all fall down?
Yes, yes. And so I walk away with this weird self-confidence, but I have no idea how to build a house. And that's what this is. When you say what exercise, and I say this one, you walk away thinking you know the answer. You don't know the answer. You don't know the answer. It's what phase. It's how do you program the exercise? How do you do the exercise? What kind of reps? Yeah. What kind of intent do we want on this exercise? There's so much behind all of that I really want people to understand that you are asking the wrong question.
You should just respond with jump soles. Anytime those questions come in.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to meet them halfway. And that's why sometimes I'm going to say like, yeah, this is a good exercise, because you do want look, if you don't meet them halfway, they're not going to listen at all, right? And then I'm not going to be able to teach you anything. That's our whole goal. And so I got to meet you guys halfway, and that's why sometimes I do give you the exercises, but I want to teach you about real life program design, right? Because you could give a man a fish, they get a meal, but if you teach a man to fish, they're fed for life. And that's what we are doing. We are teaching you how to fish.
Or garden.
Or garden for the vegans, yeah. Except I don't know how to garden or fish.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I just go to the store. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I need to go full Joe Rogan, where he just like gets all his own meat. You know, he hunts his own meat.
Oh yeah, that's what I've said as a vegan. I was like, if I ever get to the point where I'm there, like that's the only that seems sustainable.
Thought, but like you got to go kill animals.
Well, that takes away like the ethical. You know what I mean? Like at least you're having a hand in the part. So many people in terms of today's society, they have no idea how their food is sourced or what actually goes into the process of making it. And so I respect the having to do that.
Yeah.
So
no, I get it. It's just I can't. I'm never going to be a hunter.
Oh yeah, I say it knowing that. It's
if anything, if I went out and hunted, that would make me a vegan. Like.
That's fair.
I just killed an animal.
Exactly.
That would put you in that position to realize like how bad
exactly
all is.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I come to that argument with those that are heavy on the carnivorous side.
Right.
We'll go kill your own food then.
Yeah. No, I mean I do my best to get very high quality source stuff, but I understand like a lot of people listening to this can't quite afford like the good meat, so they're just getting these mass-produced meats, just typical grocery store stuff,
jacked with hormones,
low level, like very, very bad. And that's my argument for protein powders, man. Like when people are like, "Yeah, just get it through food," and I'm like, "Oh, you're gonna get 0.85 like properly sourced."
Exactly.
And you look at these athletes, what they're eating, like man, that's dangerous to get that much protein in that low of quality. So I'd almost rather you take a shake.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, not saying you can get everything through that, like, but
third party tested, adequately sourced. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so now let's look at a few Apple Podcast reviews. Which, by the way, if you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a review because it does help us.
Exactly.
So my man says, favorites equals MJ of training. Ooh.
That's nice.
That's a compliment. Or according to you, that would be the Kawhi of training, right?
Doesn't sound as well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Have the same ring.
Yeah.
Give Kawhi a few years with New Balance.
No, I appreciate that. These reviews are overwhelmingly nice. Excellent info for coaches and athletes. That's the goal, man. That's the goal. Like we want coaches to benefit from this, but we also want your 14-year-old kid to be able to listen to this and take something away. All right, guys, so that's it for today. Be sure to help us out with a review, whether it's constructive criticism or just feeding us that positivity. We need it either way. If you guys aren't already on the Vert Code, check it out, pjfperformance.net. If you're a trainer and you have not done our Becoming a Trainer webinar, that's something you're going to want to do. It's like $35. It's 2 hours worth of gems. It's basically how I started and how I took my brand to where it is, how to use social media, how to build a gym, like all of these other things that you really, really need to know as a trainer. I even give you my book list, the books that I've learned from, the websites, the podcast. It's one of those things where it's like $35 cost that could make you millions if you actually apply that knowledge. So be sure to check that out. That's also on pjfperformance.net. Until next time, peace.